So you finally won your VA disability claim, but then you got a big fat 0%, and you must be thinking, wait, there must be some sort of mistake here. And if you've been there before like I have, you know that feeling. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, my name is Mark. I'm the founder of Veteran Nexus, and I make these videos for you, the veteran, to help push you along in your journey for VA disability benefits that you deserve. So 0% ratings. I remember when I first got this, I was like, this is some sort of joke. Why give me a rating to begin with if you would just give me a 0? It's very confusing, right? You're like, why is there even a 0% rating? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the common reasons this happens and why it may not be the worst thing in the world, because there are things you can do about it most times. So before we go any deeper though, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, not an accredited agent. Everything you hear is not financial, medical, or legal advice. Literally just my experience from personal, my personal dealings and my own claim, but also just the experience gathered from talking to hundreds of veterans about their VA disability situation, and just education based off that. So DYOR, do your own research, and make sure that everything that you hear on the internet, you are vetting it. So having said that, when you get that 0%, and if you've been there like I have, it's a punch to the face. You're just like, what the just happened? Like this has to be a mistake. Why even give me this? Well, if you're getting a 0% rating, commonly there are two reasons. There are other reasons, but these are the two common ones that I see. So reason number one is statistics have played a part into your 0%. What I mean is, for that condition, and there are several of them, 0% is statistically, from what I've seen, the rating that veterans commonly get with that condition. Excuse me. Sinus problems, you know if you know. So if you're in this boat, you have a condition like hearing loss, scars, hernia, colon issues, things like that. I've seen that most common with 0%. There are more. And statistically, you're 0% because the CFR has spoken. And that's why you need to know what the CFR is, because if your rating is 0, what I would do is look at the condition on the CFR. You can Google it, look at your condition, and see how the VA rates that particular condition you got a 0% for. Might be that you are underrated. It might be the VA doesn't know what's going on. It might be that you're just at 0% based on what the VA says. Let's take one for an example, hearing loss. A lot of veterans get 0% for hearing loss. The VA is not calling them a liar when they get to 0%. That's actually not what they're saying. The VA is saying, hey, look, we acknowledge that you have a hearing problem. But based on the Code of Federal Regulations, that's a tongue twister right now, you're 0% because here's our rating criteria for 0, and then the next level up is 10. And then if you want 10%, they lay it out pretty clearly in medical terms, which I can't read because I'm not a doctor. Layman's version, do you have a hearing aid, yes or no? And because if you do, then your hearing is bad enough to warrant one, probably warrants the 10% rating. But if you don't have one, then here's your 0%. Thank you and have a nice day. So if you're in that situation where the CFR says you're 0, then you're just at 0. You have to look at it and look at the next rating above it and ask yourself, hey, do I meet that criteria? And not all of them go from 0 to 10. Some things like the esophagus, let's say, go from 0 to 30. And you got to check what I say because I just made that up, right? I just was talking to somebody and that's what the decision letter said, and I was like, okay, well, I don't actually know. I haven't looked at the CFR. Your situation is your own. I'm not your lawyer. You have to DYOR, but some conditions don't go from 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. They have their own schedule or criterion. So make sure you check and see if you're underrated, because it may be that you are, but sometimes you're just stuck at 0 because you're at 0, like scars. If there's no pain on the scars, the way it reads, it's like, okay, then I guess I'm just at 0%. Hearing, hair, skin, those are things that are also commonly at 0, like broken finger on the hand, like small things. tend to be at 0%. So that's one reason that you're getting a 0% is because the CFR has spoken, right? The other reason you could have a 0% is because there are a couple reasons. You did not tell a story that warrants more than a 0%. At your C&P exam, you didn't submit a claim with evidence that tells them that you're more than 0. And the VA might just have missed any evidence that you're more than 0. 0% ratings, I tend to call them, the VA knows something's wrong with you, but they don't know. It's the I don't know rating. It's like, I don't know how bad Mark is. It happened to me personally with dizziness. I came out of the service with a 0% on dizziness, and the reason that happened was while I had a lot of evidence in service about dizziness and vertigo, I had filed a claim. Well, when my claim resolved, rather, I hadn't gone to the hospital at all for dizziness. And so what the VA was saying was like, hey, look, we acknowledge that something happened to you back here. What we're telling you is we don't know what's wrong with you right now. And here's your 0% because we acknowledge there's a service connection, but we don't know how bad you are right now, so we're not just gonna like guess. We're just gonna give you the 0 and move you on your way. And at that point, you just tend to quit like I did. I was like, screw this, man, 0%? Like, how hard is it gonna be to get 10? You gave me 0%. It fought so hard. How am I gonna get the 10% if that was that difficult to get the 0? And veterans just quit. But if you read the CFR and you see like, oh, I'm supposed to be rated higher, one of those things happened. Like you didn't tell a strong enough story at your exam, or you didn't submit evidence that supports more than a 0%. So the VA, maybe you didn't submit evidence at all at how bad that condition is today. And again, it's the I don't know rating. The VA is like, well, we see something's wrong with you with your active duty evidence, but today it's like, I have no clue where you're at. Or the VA may have like made a mistake. You submitted all that stuff with your claim, but they didn't find it. Happens more often than people think. I mean, it happens a lot, actually, more than it should. So those things may have happened if you're at 0. Either the CFR is spoken or the VA legitimately does not know where you're at. So what do you do about 0% rating? Well, the one thing you can do is take a look at the CFR like I've been saying, and if you think you have a higher rating, it might be that you just need to go to the hospital, gather evidence through the records that you're going to complain. Maybe you already have it. Maybe you already are at the worst rating. Well, you just should package up some records and submit it with your claim if you want to increase. Again, that's not legal advice. That's my opinion. Because one thing the VA needs to know is, well, how bad are you? That's why we gave you 0%. We don't know. Now, they won't say that in your decision letter. It'll read like some very vague thing, but that's actually what's going on. So that's one thing you can do is go for the increase if it's warranted, right? Now, the other thing that you can do is file a secondary. That's why having a 0% sometimes not the worst thing in the world. Well, how does this work? Again, I'm not saying you have it. I don't know you personally. I'm not your doctor or your lawyer. But let's take hearing loss again. Well, if I have hearing loss for 1 year, that's already bad, and I can't hear you. I can't control my volume. I have to speak louder. It puts people off. I lean in because they can't hear them. I don't actually have that problem. I'm just making that up, by the way. But let's say that's you. Okay, let's say it's year 5 and you've had that problem. It's been compounding, and now it's starting to affect your life. It's causing mood issues, let's say. Now you have the 0% for hearing, but it's still bad enough that you can't hear, and it's affecting your daily life. Like you don't quite have a hearing aid, but it's still pretty bad. Now you need the evidence to prove that and the story behind it and all, everything to support that. But let's say that's the case. Well, maybe you can file a mental health claim secondary to that 0%, right? If you have a scar on a part of your body that like gives you depression, let's say, like something happened, maybe it's on your face. Look, I don't know your situation. I'm just making this up. Well, if it gives you a mood issue, you can go for that. If 0% is causing something else, you can go for that. Like sometimes a veteran will get a 0% for a fracture, but the fracture is on their face, and it's because they had a trauma to their head, and like they actually might have migraines, and then so that can be used Like, hey, look, I got a 0% for trauma to the face. Well, maybe it's reasonable that I have migraines because of that. Well, I guess you'd be filing it directly to the service, to that event. I don't know if that would work as a secondary, but it has to make sense. If you're going to file a secondary, it has to make sense. So give it some thought. And if it's legitimate and you know you're not lying and you're in the right, then why not? But I'm not your doctor, so you got to get your story straight. And you got to go to a doctor and ask them and let them figure it out before you can, gather the evidence you need to submit a winning claim. Now, it's the second thing you can do at a 0% is file a secondary. We talked about getting an increase and then filing a secondary claim. Now, the third thing is maybe you're just stuck, right? You're 0%. There's nothing else that can be done. Well, here's something you can do. Go to your local VSO and just ask for your state benefits and see what you actually get for that 0, because you might qualify for things like healthcare, school benefits for your kids, etc. But you need to find out. You can find out on the internet, but I found just asking a VSO from your state best thing to do, because they have to know what your benefits are. I believe that's part of their job. So 0%, it's a meme, right? When you get the 0 and it's really angering. But it's not the end of the world most times. You can still move with the 0% and do something. But you got to know the CFR. You got to know, why did I get a 0 in the first place? And can I use that 0% to get something else if it's warranted? Like if it's true and you believe you deserve it. So if you got any good value from this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about me, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care now.